No American accents today, sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a time, sometimes in every man's life, where he has the honor and the privilege to talk about a man who he admires and even emulates. And I'm sure for me that day will come. But today, I'm here to talk to you about Steve. I have to confess that I have been looking forward to this moment for quite some time. The chance to stand in Steve's presence and talk for 5 minutes without getting interrupted. So I'm surrounded by beauty here today. Julie looks absolutely ravishing, as you would expect. Flower girls, pretty as a picture. The bridesmaids look absolutely wonderful. And the bridal party in general, the groomsmen, they scrub up pretty well.
Thank
you. You understand scrub up? I'm sorry, the wife said wash up pretty well.
Clean up.
And then there's Steve. Well, Steve made the best of the hand that Mother Nature dealt. Good try. So Steve Sofa, as he's now known. Yeah. It's going to take a little bit of getting used to. Steve and I first met in 1999, and as he's very fond of reminding me, he didn't really like me. I'm pretty comfortable with my likability factor, so I put this down to mostly his German heritage and a deep-rooted cultural resentment for England after Germany's humiliating defeat in the 1966 World Cup. Anyway, through years of hanging out in various bars in the Detroit metro area, actually, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Through years of hanging out in 2 bars in the Detroit metro area, namely Chance Woody's, I began to grow on Steve a little bit, and so here we are today. And I can say with absolute confidence that he dislikes me slightly less than he used to. Some of you here, I'm sure, don't know Steve very well, but wish that you knew him a little better. But for the rest of us, I'm relatively certain that the opposite is quite true. After years of keen observation, I've noticed many different Steves within this one person you see before you, beneath that square-headed Germanic exterior. Yeah. I wonder which of the Steves you're actually familiar with. We all know, as Monica pointed out, vintage car lover Steve. Also vintage bicycle lover Steve. Also vintage vacuum cleaner lover Steve. Well, you kind of get the point. Essentially, if it's really old and you should have put it to the curb several years ago, Steve's really going to want to get his hands on it. Most of you here have met meticulous Steve, who almost had an aneurysm when he caught his old cat Bailey batting at his prized cactus. Bailey ended up knocking off 2 of the little nubbins that this little cactus had been straining to grow for 2 years. Steve, understandably, upset by that. Many of you will remember the hosting prowess of Woodward Dream Cruise parties, Steve, who was often accompanied by my own favourite, annoyed by people, Steve. This Steve was not a fan, for example, of anyone turning down the volume on his stereo. Melissa Buckles isn't with us here tonight, it would have been great if she had. Or, don't try and do a clam bake with hot coals in the middle of Steve's driveway when there are kids running around with flip-flops. If the stars aligned and you actually made firm plans, with non-committal Steve, some of you may even have been awestruck by breakdancing Steve in full effect. Several of you have experienced never on time for moving your house, Steve, who consistently shows up after the heavy lifting's done, but just before the pizza's been ordered. A good half of you are regretting the moment that spiky, blonde-haired Steve first looked at himself in the mirror and thought, this will be a really good idea. And an unfortunate few of you bear the psychological scars caused by inappropriate email attachments, Steve. But I wonder how many of you know pigeon rescuer Steve, who has tenderly nursed back to health not one, but two of what many would dismiss as flying rats. So next time you're in the Royal Oak area and a pigeon takes a big old dump on you, it could well be thanks to this guy right here. Or how about weakling Steve, whose grand plans to have the Imperial German cross tattooed across his shoulder almost unraveled when he became very light-headed after the first few strokes of the tattoo needle. Weakling Steve had to be revived with a wet washcloth on his forehead and a lollipop. I couldn't make this up if I tried. But perhaps the most endearing Steve of all is the one who showed up at Bloomfield Hills City Hall on Tuesday to marry the lovely Julie. Oh, how we willed him to get through his vows without his voice cracking. How we hoped against hope that his chin would stop quivering. But to no avail. All we could do is dab his tears before they ruined Julie's makeup. But enough about Steve. Because as of Tuesday, June 17th, it's no longer all of... Actually, hold on, that doesn't seem right, because I've got in my notes here, blah, 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 it's no longer all about Steve. That just doesn't feel right. I'm sure that the two of you out there who have visited cybercafe.com can back me up on this. Because if you visited that website, you'll know it really is all about Steve. So I'm kind of confused. Because today, the wedding, the reception, it's all supposed to be about the bride. That's a tradition that's gone back thousands of years, so I don't know, it's weird. It's like the unstoppable force meeting the immovable object, but anyway, I digress. So back to where we were. As of that fateful Tuesday, it's no longer about Steve. Because on Tuesday, Steve made the wisest commitment of his life in sharing it with this intelligent, strong, and beautiful woman. The beautiful part is evident to all of us here in this room this evening. Intelligent, the girl did ace med school. And the strong part is actually verified fact, since Julie completed Tough Mudder in Tennessee a couple of weeks before the wedding day.
Whoa, all right.
Absolutely. It was hot, steamy, and filthy. But I'm not here to talk about their wedding night, so I'd like to get back to Tough Mudder. The comparisons between Tough Mudder and marriage are almost too obvious. Firstly, your friends look at you like you're crazy when you tell them what you signed up for. Secondly, both are an excruciating grind filled with numerous obstacles. Thirdly, at the toughest obstacle, you'll wonder what the hell you were thinking. Yet you will overcome that obstacle with the help of your friends. But lastly, and perhaps most importantly, and probably the real reason you wanted to do this in the first place, you are guaranteed to get dirty. Really dirty at many, many points along the way. So, ladies and gentlemen, since it is, after all about Steve and Julie, please join me. Charge your glasses. That's an English thing. Fill them up. Please be upstanding. That means stand up. And join me in toasting the bride and groom.
The bride and groom.
Congratulations, you two.